to have someone accuse me of trying to provide veiled information, essentially propaganda, trying to spin a story one-sided to get people to advocate for me, that's quite literally a narcissistic behavior. This person just accused me of doing something that is deliberately dishonest. Now, here's the reality of who I am as a person. When I make decisions that are wrong or which are incorrect, my desire is always to take accountability and to do what the right thing is. I will purposely go out of my way to make a public object lesson out of myself if it can help another person to avoid pitfalls in their own life. In my own life, back in my 20s, this is back at a time when we had, in fact, there's a documentary that was made on this subject, back when the pharmaceutical company was basically enticing doctors in very unethical ways to promote the usage of certain drugs. I was one of those individuals that was overprescribed a painkiller, and it absolutely resulted in an addiction for me. This is something that occurred within a 1-year time span for me, not even a full year. But I had damaged my back while working. Long and the short of it is, I had to go back for a prescription after the original one, was utilized. And in my impaired, drug-influenced mind, I made the decision to simply write in the number of refills that I wanted because the doctor conveniently left that spot blank. Now, doing so, in my own mind, did not seem like that serious of an offense. I wasn't trying to do something where I was getting a hold of drugs to sell them to small children. I was literally trying to avoid the need to go back and pay a copay a potential third time. But ultimately what I did was unethical. It was dishonest, and it was a decision that I did make while high on painkillers, but not to excuse myself in the least degree. My dad raised me understanding that you don't make excuses for yourself. I think it's a little bit of that relationship of Alma with his son, Corey Anton, when he said, do not excuse yourself in the least degree. When we as people make excuses for ourselves, what we end up doing is creating forms of mental illness in ourselves. We basically end up trying to turn the tables or shift blame in a manner that robs us of our own application of humility. If we're not willing to apply humility entirely in our own path, whatever it is that we've done, well, then we can't learn from what we've done wrong in order to turn weaknesses into strengths. I have this working understanding within my own soul. As a result, when I had my prodigal son moment back in my 20s, where I realized that I was basically strung out on painkillers and that I was doing something that truly was not right. It was illegal. It occurred to me that, okay, I've strayed from who it is that I desire to be as a person. And regardless of how I got here, the way back is personal accountability. And so I picked up the phone and I called the police and I said, listen, I've been doing something that is against the law and I'd like to turn myself in. And this cop literally laughed at me on the phone and hung up on me. I kid you not, that's what happened. I was like, okay, that's not the number to call. Let's try a different precinct, and I picked up the phone, I called again until I found someone that was willing to take me seriously. I confessed all of my sins. I acknowledged everything that I did wrong. I now, as a man, have a felony conviction for possession of a forged instrument. It sucks. Like, my life was permanently damaged on an account of the fact that I made an impaired decision in my youth. And yet I have the integrity in myself of knowing that, yeah, I took accountability. I didn't have some cop kicking my door and arresting me for something that I was doing wrong. I wasn't hiding what I did. Like, if I make a mistake, I step up to the plate and I own it. Years before that, man, I remember working for a company called Journey's Shoes, and I was down in Florida. The manager that hired me, the guy's name was Corey, and Corey taught me some behavior patterns within that business that were unethical. And it wasn't until I arrived at a point where I had literally replaced Corey, like I had replaced his position in that area. And as I was doing his job, one day it occurred to me, I'm like, wait a second, this is completely unethical what I'm doing right now. Like, and I started to think, why have I been doing this? Like, what I'm doing is basically like fluffing numbers. Like, it makes it look better on paper than it actually is. You know what I mean? And some people would be like, it's no big deal. You know, these are probably the people that they'll work at a fast food restaurant, and when you place your order, they'll hit the space bar or whatever it is to make your order disappear off the screen so it looks like they're serving their customers quicker than they actually are, like that kind of thing. And Corey had taught me some of these behaviors, and when I realized what I was doing was unethical, I spoke with my own regional manager. Her name was Christine, and I sat down with Christine and I said, Christine, I need to tell you about something that I'm doing, and even if it costs me my job, it's more important to me to be honest about this than to try and sweep it under the rug or pretend I wasn't doing it. And I just want to apologize. I recognize that this is wrong. I don't know why it took me so long. I feel pretty dumb, but this has been going on, and it's going to stop. It was funny because I was honestly afraid I was going to get fired. And Christine flatters me, and she's like, this is why you should be a regional manager. Okay, wasn't anticipating that one. But one of the unique qualities of my autistic nature is that I'm not interested in trying to fake it till I make it. Like, I am absolutely guilty of masking. There's no two ways about that. Like, it's like you got to put on, your brave face to try and be a version of neurotypical that really you're not. Like, in your heart, in your soul, you just want to shrink and like hide in a corner. And yet for me, it's like my spiritual curriculum literally requires me to apply faith in a manner that challenges me to grow beyond that. I've had an ecclesiastic leader in the Mormon church. Once I sat down and I tried to confide in the man and share with him some things I was going through, and this man insulted me after I had shared things, and he's like, "Oh, you're honest to a fault." And I'm just like, wow, I don't know what I said that would make the guy judge me that way, but he did. Years and years ago, I think I was maybe 18, I went to a Mormon bishop and I received a disciplinary counsel. I wasn't living right. I hadn't been active in church. I had been smoking cigarettes. I had not been, actively trying to live the word of wisdom, or even maintain the law of chastity in the ways I should have or could have been. It's not where I was in my life. And when I decided I wanted to go ahead and apply myself to my own path with God, I go to this Mormon bishop, and this guy decides, I need a disciplinary counsel, and I go through the process. I jump through the hoops that are placed before me. I'm not allowed to say prayers in church. I'm not allowed to do these things. I am supposed to do these things, and it's like being on spiritual probation. After this time passes, I had this really strange experience where I'm sitting in the bishop's office, and he's got, his counselors, I think even a member of the High Council was flanking, and I think it was the conclusion of my disciplinary council. These men convened together, and they decided amidst themselves that I was at a point where I had, paid the price, I guess. I had demonstrated the consistency in their mind that meant that I was worthy of continuing in some path of discipleship. I'm not really sure, actually, now that I think about that. But what I do know is that when it was all said and done, after we had literally said a closing prayer and 3 of the men had already gotten up and left the room, I had a strange experience. And it was, for me, it was like a spiritual test. That's what it felt like. Because suddenly in my mind, a thought came to me of something that I had done that certainly fell under the umbrella of sin, though it wasn't like deliberately, maliciously, grievously bad. It was still something that I had failed to even think of up until that moment. Like I genuinely had not even thought about it. And there it was being presented to my mind right after the closing prayer. And in myself, I'm thinking, don't say anything. Just let it go. They said you're good. Go your way. But there was something within me that was just like, if you do that, you're robbing yourself. You're still hiding your sins, And so I went ahead and I said to the bishop, Bishop, I just remembered something that I had completely failed to bring up earlier. And it was a sin that fell under the umbrella of morality. When I shared this with this bishop, his response to me was not, okay, well, then we may need to revisit these things. It was not, okay, well, I think that would have been satisfied by, your disciplinary counselor. It was none of that. His response was just to light into me with criticism. And he tells me, boy, you really like to air your dirty laundry, don't you? I'm like, what? I'm sitting here placing myself at the mercy of an ecclesiastic leader that I'm trusting for spiritual guidance. There was no guidance in that. It was just criticism. And here's the kicker, is that within the theology of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, in the Pearl of Great Price even, there are teachings which illuminate the idea that there comes a time in eternity when the truth of all things will be known and understood. Like nothing will be hidden. If you made the decision to speak with disrespect to your grandmother on your 8th birthday, everyone in eternity is capable of knowing that. You know what I mean? That kind of transparency. There's another teaching that suggests that the earth will be translated, that it'll be like glass, referring to our ability to look through or to see a thing. For me, when I considered those teachings, when I considered how those teachings directly applied to me as a man, I realized that if I carry myself in life with the awareness that, yeah, even the heavens are looking upon me from one minute to the next, that would probably allow greater authenticity and accuracy or alignment within my own soul than if I'm busy trying to be something that I'm not. I don't know. I don't believe in fake it till you make it. Who I am as a person is not good enough in the eyes of many people. I can't be someone that I'm not. I can't be somewhere that I'm not in my progression. But one thing I can do is be absolutely honest. The patriarchal blessing that I was given told me to be absolutely honest in my dealings with my fellow man. If I choose to omit truth, to leave something out in a manner that creates a misunderstanding or a misconception for another person, that's a form of deception. That's a form of dishonesty. I don't want to do that. Furthermore, if whatsoever we measure to others is measured back upon us to overflowing, I have had people gaslight me. I've had people lie to me. I've had people tell me that how they see themselves, then I trust them and it comes at my expense. I don't want to be that kind of person for others. So to have someone that doesn't know me at all step up and leverage onto me that I'm trying to spin things from a one-sided angle, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, you're an asshole. You're projecting whatever your limited development within yourself psychologically is onto someone else. It's gross, but those are the kinds of aspects of social retardation that I can see happening. Meanwhile, these people perceive themselves as better than me because they're somehow neurotypical. If neurotypical means that I have to be that kind of asshole, well, then I don't want to be a part of a group that functions that way. Period. I'd rather stand alone, dare to stand alone, than to stand with people who can't even play by the golden rule. You know, you want to sit there and criticize throwing stones from a glass house as you literally violate your own covenant, fail to bear someone's burden to be light. Whatever. But to be accused that I'm not submitting to the process, I tried for years, for literal years, to make the process work. And what I learned is that the process breaks down, and that the description that Christ gave about those who will neither go in nor will they move out of the way for those who would, yeah, that's a thing. Like, there are people that do that, like little narcissists who find themselves in positions of leadership. And Joseph Smith spoke about this. It is the sad nature and disposition of almost every man, the moment he receives the least degree of authority, as he supposes, amen to the priesthood and the authority in that man. And there's supposed to be a process to address these things, and yet that process is not working. Why? Well, because in order for it to work, it would require the membership to actually believe in the teachings enough to apply them. And they don't. Instead, what their belief is, their cockamamie belief, is that just because someone gets called and put into a position that automatically they're chosen. That ain't it, folks. Many are called and few are chosen. And why are they not chosen after they are called? Well, because their heart's set upon the things of this world. Basically, they're not willing to repent. They're not willing to do what's right. They're more concerned with how they see themselves in their own mind. And as a result, they fail to qualify. They are not chosen. They simply received a calling. The Lord will qualify those whom he calls. But you can lead a horse to water. You can't force it to drink. And these people want to go ahead and say that I'm doing something wrong. Why? Because the wicked who are guilty of these things might be offended. Interesting. You mean I'm not going to win people over by being a people pleaser? Oh no. Well, I tried that method for many years. And again, that doesn't work. That is completely ineffective. That literally only enables those who are in narcissistic control. Like, how dumb is that? I want to find this person's personal profiles. I want to see the behavior patterns that they're demonstrating in other aspects of their life. I guarantee I can demonstrate, evidence of their hypocrisy. But regardless, to hell with it. I got other fights to battle, and if I take the time to throw a stone at every dog that barks, I won't make it where I need to go. A person is not what someone says they are. A person is not what they think they are. A person is what a person does. End of story. What I do, I fall short in so many ways, it's not funny. But one thing I do, I tell the truth. Even if it comes at my own expense, I will tell the truth. I'm not going to sit there and lie through my teeth to try and save my own ass. Why? Well, because that's quite literally the behavior of the individuals that I am communicating open rebuke to, and I wouldn't have to do so if the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints actually upheld the principles of conflict resolution which were authored by Jesus Christ over 2,000 years ago. If the church, which claims to be true, actually upheld the framework of those teachings and the expounding which Joseph Smith provided, then the justice that I desired would have been addressed long ago. Hell, it would have been more compassionate for the church to simply excommunicate me years ago than to have demonstrated this siloing, bullying, anti-priesthood behavior pattern. It is so far removed from what the pure love of Jesus Christ is and the talks which have been given that it's not even funny. But people roll over to it. So if Mormonism as a culture, as a church at large, is willing to turn a blind eye to those kinds of things, by their fruits you know them. End of story. And if they're not willing to acknowledge something that they're doing that's wrong and to correct it and to bring themselves into alignment, well, again, by their fruits you know them. But the teachings can be clear. If I explain that this is what they've said they will do, and yet here's what they're doing, anyone that can't see the contrast there, like, you got your head in the sand. You got your head up your butt. You're too interested trying to defend your own narrative to see the reality of facts. So, yeah, that's literally the pride cycle talked about in the Book of Mormon. That's the example where these people were given a sacred covenant, and yet they get up on their rammy-umptum and talk about how blessed they are while they judge other people from their own twisted paradigm. Reminds me of the movie Ugly Dolls, to be honest. Oh, well. Yeah, so for me, personal accountability, let's do this. In the last decade, there came a point where I began to deal with severe anxiety and depression. It occurred shortly after the birth of my son, who's now 13. My wife, she was struggling with postpartum. I made the decision to step up, to be in the home, to be with my children, to try and afford her the grace that she needed to work through that for herself. My sister had struggled with that at one point. I know that's something that's challenging for a lot of women. But I also know that, women can address it and overcome that. And I ended up being, Mr. Mom. I ended up being a full-time stay-at-home dad, and quickly began to realize the deficiency that existed in me because I didn't receive the spiritual inheritance that I wish I could have. And that created a lot of anxiety and depression for me. As a result, that and the fact that my wife, mental health professional, I made the decision to go ahead and utilize Western medicine pharmaceuticals. Now, I don't know why I did. I really don't. The Bible clearly teaches that the time comes when humanity becomes dependent upon pharmaca. And I know that doing so is trusting in the arm of flesh. It's basically popping a pill to alleviate what might otherwise be perceived as spiritual, maladies within self. But I did. And the result of that particular pharmaceutical was horrific. I did not comprehend before taking that one of the potential side effects was suicidal thoughts. So here I was, a guy that had a 4.0 GPA in college. Our bills were paid, living in a nice little townhouse. We got our 2 cars. We just had our baby together. Our bills are paid months in advance. Like, we got life running in some really groovy ways. Lots of things to be grateful for. And yet, for some reason, I'm dealing with this weight of depression that makes me want to throw in the towel on life. And I knew that it wasn't right. Like, this is not correct. So immediately discontinue the use of that. And I counsel with an ecclesiastic leader. Now, I have a signed document from this bishop on this matter, but that's another story for another day. Long and the short of it is, I was counseled to utilize medicinal cannabis from a bishop in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And again, I have a signed piece of paper to that effect. That was my mistake. That was one of them anyway. Not the use of cannabis. Like, don't get me wrong. The mistake was that there was an element of lacking integrity in how that decision came about. I ended up sending him to his stake president at one point because I was like, Eric, you can't counsel people to do this. Like, if you lead people astray, like, those sins fall on your head, right? Keep that in mind too. Keep that in mind. That's important. But even still, the decision was made. Yeah, brother, please, stop judging yourself. If this particular, blessing exists in the universe, if it has the potential to assist you, don't judge it. Recognize that it's a God-given blessing, and we live in a state where this thing is available to you now. And they encouraged me to use cannabis to attend church, to use cannabis and even attend the temple. Now, fast forward, and one of the issues that happened was the way in which cannabis was being used. So then the decision is, well, inhalation can't be accepted because, that involves carcinogens, so that's bad. And then they're like, you should only use edibles. Well, the problem is that there's different science involved in that. Beyond that, there's no real regulation to the edibles that are being created. And one of the things that did occur for me while taking edibles that involved cannabis, attempting to address, symptoms, I fell into what I believe was psychosis. And that was horrible, to say the least. It was absolutely horrible. Then here I am, okay? As much as I'd like to point fingers at other people, and the fact is, these people did create influence in my life. I did trust them based upon my perception of what was playing out at that time. But if I take accountability for myself, I made those decisions. I did that. Yeah, I have to accept the fact that I did trust in the arm of flesh. That was on me. I made that mistake. I thought that these people were divinely inspired, and ultimately I was led astray. I have to accept that was on me. I made those mistakes. But I made the decision within myself, within my own imbalance. Granted, I trusted in pharmaca first. That was a big mistake. Shouldn't have done that. Big Pharma doesn't care about me. Big Pharma's not going to take accountability. They're just going to put a disclaimer and say, if anything bad happens, whoops, not our fault, And that's basically what the church has tried to do too. Is oh, we're going to tell you what to do, but then something bad happens. Oops, not our fault. Well, hold on now. I was trusting you. But for me, the sins that I am most guilty of during that would all be defined as revilement. Because I do not believe in the pride cycle that is currently being taught within Mormonism as it relates to subjects of profanity or swear words, as they say, vulgarity. I believe that the church itself is teaching a form of ignorance to its membership that is creating a very polarized spirit of judgment towards the majority of humanity. While I understand the importance of reverence, while I understand the benefit of communicating in ways that do not create inflammatory outcomes, I don't agree with the narcissistic judgments, which are absolutely in existence within Mormonism. I could prove the teachings and the judgments. I could show you literal talks that have been given by apostles and prophets on these subjects that is quite literally contrary to the instructions and the description of God himself. There have been people that I have been able to assist and share the gospel with who have been judged and rejected by Mormonism at large because they lacked the polish that the Mormon culture might like to see. So if I could make a comparison, at the time of Alma, there were people that were thrown out of the synagogues because of the coarseness of their apparel. In today's day and age, they may not be willing to throw you out because your clothes don't look nice enough, but they will throw you out based on the coarseness of your communication. And that too is a form of discrimination, as well as a violation of the Constitution of the United States, the freedom of speech. At the point that we say that elders are going to defend the Constitution when it hangs by a thread, I sign up and align with the perception of J. Golden Kimball, the swearing apostle, over, Heber Kimball, who, wanted to sit there and tell him, you got to stop swearing. He gets up to the pulpit, the first thing out of his mouth is, well, shit, Hebes. Why? Because it's ignorance. It's quite literally ignorance. Brigham Young taught if there's truth anywhere in this world, it belongs to this church. Okay, so the Battle of Hastings happened. There was a time that people used words like shit instead of manure, where they would say something like lamb instead of mutton. There were words that they used that were descriptive words, and in their language, it was a word. But to someone who saw themselves as better than, that person judged their whole language and said, it is cursed. It's cursed. Those are now curse words. Well, that person doing that does not make that language automatically part of profanity. That's not how that works, and that's not the definition of what it means to be profane. Though there are some parallels. But no, these are my sins. When the prophet says we have to give up even our favorite sins, yeah, that's one of the ones that I have to give up. But for someone to sit there and tell me that I have to go ahead and conform to what they think I'm supposed to be doing in my own path based on their judgment, that's contrary to the gospel. So if I'm progressing line upon line and precept upon precept, and someone comes along and wants to tell me that I'm not on the line or the precept that they think I'm supposed to be on based on their judgment, that person's playing God. That's not their place to do that. If something that I've done is a direct trespass against them, well, by all means, they have the right to come to me and to illuminate to me what I've done to trespass against them. But these people have bullied me just because I sin differently than they do. And it's not like I'm going into church swearing left and right. That's not the case at all. Heck, one time I was in church, I used the word ignorant to reference myself and others who are literally ignoring something. Like, the word has a definition. It wasn't designed to be inflammatory. It's a word in the English language, people. But because some of these old timers, oh man, they don't want to ever perceive themselves as possessing even the slightest shred of ignorance. They're so wise. They became so offended. And as Brigham Young said, only a fool takes offense where no offense is intended. So if I were to describe another one of my sins, it's that I'm often easily offended because of the post-traumatic stress that I endured, because of the trauma that I have lived through. I now have broken neurological wiring, and if you choose to step on my toes in a manner that reflects the pattern of narcissistic abuse that I have lived through, you're going to watch me revile in my own weakness and in my own lack of development. It's going to happen. I don't want it to. I don't want to justify it. I wish I could remove that thorn from my own side. It never used to be there. I never used to have that lack of restraint. But that's literally what these ecclesiastic leaders did to bully me. They antagonized me. They identified that weakness in me, and they purposely antagonized me to my breaking point. And I begged them to stop. I begged them to leave me alone. I tried to attend a different stake. Then someone bears false witness against me as I'm attending in a different stake where I do feel welcome, where I do know people. And next thing I know, I'm told I'm not even allowed to attend church anymore. And the reason? I'm a disruption. Well, hold on now. Disruption? What disruption did I create? Because the disruption they're referring to happened through email. I drafted emails in which I communicated with individuals, in some cases with vulgarity and even strength, because of my offense at their choice to make decisions which came at the expense of my wife and children, or which involved them bearing false witness and literally defiling themselves. And these guys that are doing these horrible things, well, because I have this weakness where I give into anger, that invalidates me. I get it. I completely get it. But what I don't agree with is that if a person has a struggle with legitimate mental health and they're actively striving to be a disciple of Christ, why would you kick them out of the church? If Christ teaches come as you are, that doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Like, I've attended church in so many different places in this country. I've served in so many different capacities. Never in my life have I faced the ignorance that exists within the church as I have here within, this last decade. And I don't know that I ever would have arrived at this awareness if the Lord had not given me these experiences. Because otherwise, I would have been some, dumbass Peter Priesthood who was sitting there judging people with the same ignorant paradigm I previously used to. I would have looked at someone like me and judged me too. I would have been like, yeah, dude, you're doing it all wrong. Great. So then what's the right way, right? And to that point, Bishop Thompson, who is now Elder Thompson, a general authority, once my bishop in Southwest Florida, same man that had to put me on a bus when I was literally homeless on the street at 16, shipped me back to New York because my parents had freaking neglected me. This man, who was my bishop when I was in the Aaronic priesthood, who's also a lawyer, I reached out to him, chatted with him at one time, and we had a long conversation. And even he acknowledged that you have to use very specific behavior patterns to navigate what may as well be described as the politics of the church. And these petty little invalidating behaviors are so far removed from what the gospel of Jesus Christ is supposed to be that it's not funny. And the only way that these issues will ever be corrected is if someone is willing to illuminate them, if discussions begin to occur on them, and if people are willing to take a look and recognize, okay, yeah, we've got an error here. This is something to correct. There's a guy that he works for Honeywell. Is it Honeywell? No, I think that might be the technology manufacturer. Honey something or other. They're involved with the production of grains. And I was purchasing food storage at one point. And I was buying these large bags of grain that I could, process into, these 5-gallon buckets. And this company screwed up really bad. Like it was embarrassing for them. Because the order that it was supposed to come was one thing, and then that order wasn't actually accurate, and what they sent was damaged on top of it. Like the whole process, it just got screwed up. And because I have a mind that comes from business as well as like systems management and things like that, I was able to share a perspective with the company about what was happening on the receiving end that the VP of the company felt was highly valuable. And this man thanked me. In fact, they replaced my entire order for free. I was just like, hey, can we replace the 3 bags that were damaged and get this corrected? Because it was supposed to be this. Like, it's kind of a hassle to have to jump through this. But, and I just shared some feedback. If you guys put this check and measure in here, if you got a follow-up here, these little things here can assist you in avoiding this going forward. And I was just sharing the understandings that I had to assist this company that I'm doing business with to improve the business that they're doing. Now, that is how I think. I had a supervisor years ago. A guy's name was Mike. And Mike says, he's like, you know what I like about Ben? He's like, Ben doesn't see problems. He sees opportunities for improvement. And I was flattered by the statement. And at the same time, I was like, I'm not sure if that's accurate. I see a lot of problems, But even still, it's like every problem is an opportunity for improvement, right? It's not about condemning a person, And I guess that's probably the big difference between me and this Jake Harden that wanted to criticize me, is that they come along and they just offer criticism. I'm coming along offering criticism. I'm pointing out what we're doing wrong, what it's supposed to be, and I'm willing to offer suggestions and solutions to make sure it doesn't happen going forward. When I receive bad customer service someplace, I'm not one of these people that just wants to attack the business to tear them down so they don't do business with others. That's sad and narcissistic. When I have a bad experience somewhere, I want to go ahead and hold up the mirror for them so that they're willing or capable of recognizing what they're doing wrong and so that they fix it. You know what I mean? I had a situation with my daughter. She participates in a jiu-jitsu class with a couple of her siblings. And one particular week, she had an experience that was not very good. She came home pretty sad. And one of the instructors had made a statement to her that was not the nicest after she had already been hurt. And he was the one that was sparring with her. The guy shouldn't have been. He asserted himself in a way that literally hurt her. She's a 7-year-old girl, for crying out loud. And then he criticizes her that she needs to toughen up. And I'm like, hold on now. I got a problem with that. I got my daughter out here trying to carry 5, gallon buckets full of rocks when we're doing landscaping in the backyard, help her toughen up a little bit. I don't want some guy sitting here criticizing her when she attempts to give feedback that she's just been hurt because he's applied too much force. So I had to go down and address this. And at first, the manager thought that my goal was just to condemn them. But then as he listened a little further, he recognized that my goal was not to do harm to the business I'm doing business with. My goal was to hold up the mirror for them so that they could see the opportunity for improvement, the opportunity for coaching and training that stood in place, so that they could go ahead and assist that instructor to avoid making that mistake with anyone else. You know what I mean? Like if the mistake is going to happen with you, that sucks. Are they willing to learn from what they've done so that they don't keep doing those things to other people? And if they're not, what the hell are they doing as leaders in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Food for thought, right? But anyway, for me, my patriarchal blessing told me to give my most faithful efforts to his church most of all. Now, what do you make out of it when the Lord tells you one thing, but then you get some of your brothers and sisters within your house who want to tell you that you're undesirable and that God doesn't want you? Who do you listen to? Do you listen to the haters? Or do you follow the instructions that you're given from the Lord? Interesting. Now, I mean, the other funny thing is that if a person wants to accuse me of being apostate and they're like, oh, whatever, you don't even believe in your patriarchal blessing, it's like, okay, fine. You know, you can go ahead and leverage your judgments on me any way you want. I don't control the choices other people make. I'm not in a position of leadership that I would have the ability to make executive decisions to influence change. I have been in positions like that in my life for other organizations. There's a gal over in Surprise. She came to me because she wanted to make sure the temple work for her family got done. Someone in the church told her, well, if you want to get something done, go ask Brother Sisk. He'll make sure it gets done. I know how to get things done. But J. Golden Kimball, he had a unique teaching that existed about how to make the oxen move. And I'll tell you what, it didn't involve petting the oxen on the noses and telling them what good oxen they are. I'm not saying that his solution was accurate. I'm not saying that I'm following that playbook either. I'm simply defending my freedom of speech in this world. I'm saying that your choice to take offense to my freedom of speech, according to Brigham Young, that makes you a fool. Your choice to discriminate against someone in the church and to not even follow the framework of conflict resolution or the commandments that are literally in the scriptures, well, again, you guys can bully me to the end. My patriarchal blessing told me that my life would have great meaning and great consequence, and that I was destined to be a blessing in the lives of many. It'd be really hard to do that if I just allow myself to fly under the radar my whole life, right? So I don't want to have to pop my head up. I don't want to have to address these issues. I do want to be a peacemaker, but how do you make peace with people who are lying, deceiving, not following the process, and literally trying to lock you away with no rights, no freedoms? Would you want to participate in a church that would be willing to treat you that way? You know, a lot of people are willing to look at your situation and be like, oh, it's isolated. You're the problem. There's something going on here. It's not us, right? Yeah, that's always the perspective. And yet if you actually walk a mile in that person's shoes and you qualify the details, again, you'd be surprised at what you might learn. Food for thought.